Gender inequality by using blockchain technology. Last Thursday on the first program, I presented what we are doing, and today I want to welcome the person which is working with me in this project, who is Arnold Berwins. Good morning, Arnold. How are you today?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Great.
So, as mentioned to everyone, Arnold and I, we are working together in solving gendergap.eu. So we have created this movement and this concept. And I'm here today with Arnold to explain you everyone what we do and how we are going to do it and what is the benefit and how and what will be the next steps moving forward for us. So before we get started, maybe Arnold, in your view, can you share with the viewers what is solving gender gap?
So yes, the issue is very clear. The gender gap, I believe, is also really clear for everyone. And other, basically what I call system biases or faults. We also have these days Black Lives Matter. It's basically a failure of our system to solve such an issue. And the gender gap just as well. These problems are probably more than 100 years old and still not solved. And that sounds really bad if I tell it this way. But the nice thing is that technology gives us new tools and methods to basically look at the problem and solve it. So that's exactly what we like to present. So first I like to take another look at the same problem and then present our technical solution.
Yes, so that's right, Arnold. As we know, as you mentioned, we don't want to stand very far on this one because everyone is talking about the same thing. As you mentioned, it's not something that is modern and it's something that we just came out with this idea. It's something that is coming from more than a century, as you mentioned, we know that we live in an inequality society. There is gender gaps, there is discrimination, and the key element in here is that we want to solve gender inequality, and we know that especially in countries like Africa is where we are starting our project, and of course in a collaborative way with CoinNews Extra, is because normally speaking, women around the world, they don't have access to, first of all, to have access to financial. So normally speaking, in this type of countries, it's normally the man who is managing the money, or they don't have access to work, basically. And that's an issue, right? And then also, on top of, we have the current technology that probably is not good enough in these countries, or is not reachable enough to these countries. And we have now a solution, which is blockchain, which is pretty much a distributed layer system, which can help with this, and not only this, but especially with these diversity issues. Is that right?
Yes, it's completely right. So first of all, why maybe Africa? Well, of course there are many problems, and there is not a lot of legacy. There are not a lot of systems that stand in the way if you try something new, if you do not have to lose a lot. So that is really a paradise if you have a kind of a solution. So then people are probably easier with accepting it. And in other places on the world, yes, you might have a lot of resistance. So that's also a really big advantage for in this case, Africa. And you also see it when you look at the adoption of the internet. So if you take, for example, if you want to gain some knowledge in America or in Europe, well, you could go to a university easier. I won't say that they're also there, but the knowledge that is now spread around the world and all the courses people can take is of a relative bigger advantage for a country did not have that many institutes. And now it becomes really great because the knowledge is just everywhere. And over the internet, just the way like we do, we just spread knowledge. And it's just there to pick up. It's also not that you have to do really a lot for it. You just have to believe in it and study it a little bit and have a commitment, and there you go. Because it doesn't require a large amount of capital or a lot more research. Of course, there is research to do, but that's at the end. The start is most of the time very easy. So I want to say that blockchain is there. It's not. It's like the internet. It's just there. But it's maybe stupid if you don't use it, I would say. And it's most of the blockchains are based on open source, and of course we like to present the tools and methods to take this tool and implement it. And we take the case that appeals a lot, of course, to those who are disadvantaged by it and can solve it. And that is, of course, the bias of the system. It's a fault. And the bias or a fault is basically an inefficiency. So if you shut out a lot of people, like in this case, in the case of the gender gap, the females, you basically do not use resource in this case. The women who are very talented just as equal, but you just do not give them a chance.
Yes.
And the same case for Black Lives Matters, Black Intelligence Matters. We should use them, and that counts for all over the world. And it's a bias, we say, and I will explain later in detail. It's a bias that our current systems, our institutes, do not include these pools of talent.
Yes, that's right. And especially, as you mentioned, is right now the blockchain is there, is easier than we expect. And as you mentioned, it's going to be easier to implement in countries like Africa, as you mentioned, because they will have, they don't have, let's say, because what happened, and I'm sure that you agree with this, Arnold, a lot of people, especially in Europe or America, because we have other system and it's the way we used to do things, we don't want to change, or it is harder to implement blockchain because it's how we normally do it. But in places like Africa, for example, India, Middle East, even Latin America, some of countries of there, the people is willing to change things. They want to have access to education. They want to increase, the ecosystem in females in the workforce. They want to have better solutions in the agriculture, in the finance, in whatever it might be. And that requires, first of all, to get this chance, which is, as you mentioned, blockchain is there and it's easy to implement. And it will help us to have this distributed and layered system across the world, which will have major impact to these countries, especially for the females, to get access to education, work, and control of their financials.
Yes, exactly. So basically, the core point what we have is, just as the internet, blockchain is a distributed technology. It's not centralized. That makes that organizations you like to build do not need to be that complex, that large. So if you need in Africa a kind of institute, or you want to have a banking system, in the past you need a lot of people, a lot of knowledge, and basically a big building they have, at least in the West. And not that they do not have them over there, but it is quite something, and it's quite vulnerable for things like corruption. If you can make an organization that is flat and decentralized, then you probably must prefer that, because the basic lesson of organizing thing is is that you do not organize something in a very complex way for nothing, because it has coordination costs. So to build a big institute, you must have a good reason.
Yeah.
And the technology, the distributed technology of the internet and the blockchain are just justifying a far more flatter organization. So instead of having all kind of departments and related kind of leadership to organize your stuff, you just can do it with a few people, and that's of course that's really great.
Yes.
And there it comes, and there it comes. If our case is to emphasize that if you have a very complex, layered organization, like a big bank, like a complex government, then these layers have all their biases towards women, towards certain groups, certain minorities, and we say that it's not that much the people who discriminate, but the system.
Yeah.
So there are two different things. I do not deny that there are people who discriminate, and it's wrong. That's true. But it doesn't explain the full error. And we focus a lot on the system error.
Yes.
The layered system that, for example, when you go to university and you want to have a career like a professor, you first must, of course, start your university and have the best degrees. That's the first step. But then, of course, you have to write a kind of paper, and probably a lot more. And every time when you take such a step, as a person, as a female, as a minority, then you get a hit. Every time you get then probably this personal bias. They prefer to take a man because maybe that sounds better. And on itself, when you do that once, it's not such a big issue. But when you do that 10 times in a row, then at the end, of course, no female or no minority is left over. And that is what I call the system error. And blockchain makes organizations really nice and flat. And we do not have these layers. You do not have a complex banking system when you just use a digital coin,
Yes.
for example.
And I would like to make a point in there, Arnold, because as we mentioned, of course, we are working in a collaborative way with Co.News Extra. They are based in Nigeria. And of course, we are focused in Africa. But as we mentioned, we also cover other part of the world. And our solution, Solving Gender Gap toolbox that we have created is also fixing and could fix across the world. It doesn't matter. But we have a special, of course, interest and willingness to first of all solve gender inequality in countries like Africa. And I will also make a point as well, because people, and especially a lot of people might think that blockchain is just Bitcoin, and it's not. Bitcoin is the first application that was made using blockchain technology. But for the people who is watching us, our call is that blockchain also has other benefits, and one of them, and it's a huge one, is diversity. It will help with diversity and to have access to better jobs, to have more education, to solve agriculture issues. So you have a multiple possibilities, just because, as you mentioned, it's a distributed layer system, and the concept of it is that is a peer-to-peer system, and everyone has the ownership of it. So we don't have one central government or one central company having the control of it. So for doing that, yes. So for doing that, Arnold, I will ask you, for the people who is watching us, if you can explain how I mean, they can reach us, of course, in www.solvinggendergap.eu. But can you explain to the viewers what will be, just briefly, the process that we want to, or we are implementing in Africa moving forward?
So the nice thing of a blockchain and that kind of technology is just that it is a facility, and it has what you just told, a lot of usage.
Yes.
We focus on the gender gap. It's like the internet. When you had it in the beginning, maybe people thought, oh, maybe it's a phone book or a catalog. Well, it's a lot more.
Yes.
And the blockchain is a lot more than only a coin. And basically, it helps us to recalibrate and organize our whole society. And because it's decentralized, it really doesn't matter that much where you start. And
Yes.
that means that everyone also should start and take the initiative. We are used in our society to wait for a kind of leader or someone who stands up and takes the initiative. That is not needed. It's really the people themselves. It's a very democratized kind of tool. So you really can start with that. And we really like to appeal to the people who believe that, okay, this is the toolbox. We have to do something with that, to come to our site and basically learn more about the technology. Make it yourself own. We give courses. We transfer the knowledge, and it's really not a lot. It's really not a complete university degree you get. It's just an eye-opener, and then you can really start in your community to share that awareness and said, look, we have a new kind of toolbox, the way we organize ourselves, and we transfer money, we transfer trust. We can do something in a different way, and it's far more cheaper, far more efficient, far more fair. And things like a bias or an efficiency, you can really make traceable and transparent. That's something completely new that you really see when someone makes a mistake, when you see when someone makes an error, if it's by accident or organized, it doesn't matter. You see it. Blockchain makes things transparent and traceable. And it's a beautiful toolbox that we like to share, of course.
Yes, and of course, as mentioned, we are spreading this word in Africa, and what we want is to increase the female ecosystem, because we believe that we want to have an equal world where females have access to anything really, because we are humans, we are equal. It doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, where you're coming from. We should live in a society which allows everyone in this world to have the opportunity they want or they deserve or whatever. They have the access to everything as the rest of the people has, or that should be a human right, and the current system is not, seems that it's not human rights.
Yes, it's exactly what you say, and it's not only the right. A right comes together with inefficiency. We make ourselves poorer, unjust, and it's totally correct that groups in the world are frustrated and feel injustice, and I believe everywhere in the world it comes to an end. This endless tolerance towards gender inequality and also Black Lives Matter, because at a certain moment it just has to stop. And now it happens that there is a kind of toolbox available that is called blockchain, and it's like a holy grail. So please people, take this technology, take a good look at it, because you can very hard comment the problem again and again and go and demonstrate, but you can also take action and really start to solve it, and it goes very fast using technology. We see that all day.
And I really want to add something very I guess, relevant in here as well, that we know that when it's something new, it sounds very complex and it's like we cannot do it. And like in everything we're trying to solve, of course, it requires education. So we need to educate the market, and we get that because sometimes the change, it takes time, right? And we know that for certain people, they couldn't understand what it is, and especially in this one that we're trying to get a more diverse world and solving gender inequality, that requires education. And I will say like a little bit of culture change in there, because in certain countries, women, they don't have even access to the money. The men are controlling all of this, the financials. So we're trying what we're trying to do in here is actually women have access to better jobs and financials, and that will require a change in the mindset. We get that. So that's why we want to grow this ecosystem and to teach, especially I will say younger generations, because they could be the more easily the ones that can be the game changers in here, how to use blockchain. And that's we call also females in there, that it is there, we can it is here to solve gender inequality, but any type of issues that we have in the current system. Blockchain is possible, is easier. And if you want to join us and of course have a conversation with us, please do so. We are in www.solvinggendergap.eu. Anything else that you want to add, Arnold?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, we provide these lessons and basically guide you to the tools and that really make you believe that and prove that it really can work in a different way, because exactly what you say, it's full of different thinking. It's like you lived always on a flat world and you come to the conclusion you have an extra dimension, and it's called a paradigm shift. You always believed it could never be solved and this is how the world is. Well, it doesn't need to be. And it's also not true that Africa is far behind, because they don't need a lot of capital or a lot of research to be a very serious player or even a winner in this race. It's only that they believe also in learning this, picking it up and making it themselves. It's a lot of has to do with self-belief.
Yes, I like that. Self-belief, it is possible. Please join us. As I mentioned, my next program will be in the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. It will be in 2 Thursdays. Yes, the 23rd of Thursday will be my next program, Solving Gender Inequality by Using Blockchain. Arnold Beerwins is my business partner in here. We are working together in this project, and we are in www.solvinggendergap.eu. Please join us, follow us, and I will see you next in 2 Thursdays time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Arnold.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Bye. Have a good day.